Good afternoon, everyone. Let us start. Today we shall learn about erosion and deposition. Now let me present my screen. So erosion and deposition as a natural process. So before we start, let us see some photographs related with erosion and deposition. I think you are familiar with erosion process also. So this is a photograph showing erosion of a hill range or a highland. Then we have this is another photograph showing erosion, lateral, we call it lateral erosion or side erosion made by running water, that is river. See here, sides are eroded by the running water, that is river. Then about deposition, I think you are familiar with deposition also. So this is a photograph showing deposition. Here this area, okay, here. So this area shows deposition, okay, deposited areas. This is what we call alluvial vein. So it is formed at the foot hills of mountains, okay. So this is an example of deposition. And now let us start. Erosion, you know, this is the process of removing earth materials, and this erosion involves acquisition and transportation of rock debris. So erosion includes acquisition, that is removal of the rock materials, earth materials, and transportation of the same, okay. So when massive rocks break into smaller pieces, smaller fragments through weathering and any other process, erosional geomorphic agents like running water, groundwater, glacier, wind, waves remove and transport it to other places depending upon the dynamics of each of these agents, okay. So when big rocks are broken into smaller pieces by the process of weathering, running water, then groundwater, glacier, wind, waves remove these pieces of rocks from the surface and are transported to the other places depending on the dynamics of each of these agents. Agents here means this running water, groundwater, glacier, winds, okay. Dynamics means is concerned with the forces that cause motions of bodies. And abrasion by rock debris carried by these geomorphic agents also adds greatly in erosion process. So abrasion by rock debris also help in erosion process. What do you mean by abrasion? See here, this is a river valley, let us say, and here water is, okay, flowing, and when the rock fragments, okay, carried by the running water crash on the wall of the this river bed, Okay, then here the side of the these river valleys are eroded, and that process is known as abrasion. Okay, abrasion. So let me repeat. See, the river water carries a lot of rock fragments. Okay, lots of rock fragments, and when these rock fragments scratch on the side of the valleys, on the side of the riverbed, then this earth material is removed, and that process is known as abrasion. Okay. The spelling of abrasion is not correct. Okay, see here, abrasion S, it should be this ash. Abrasion process. So abrasion, as I told you, helps in the erosion process. So by erosion, relief degrades. Because of erosion, highlands are degraded. That is, landscape is worn down. Okay, see here, this is a relief, let us say. So this is a relief, and because of erosion, this highland is worn down in this way, and ultimately it may become a plain area. Okay, so by this erosion process, relief degrades, the height of the places decreases, that is, the landscape is worn down. That means weathering adds erosion. Okay, as we discussed earlier, but it is not a precondition of erosion, but weathering, breaking down of rocks, is helping the erosion process. And it is erosion that largely responsible for continuous changes that the earth surface is undergoing. So because of erosion process, the earth surface has been changing continuously. Highlands are eroded to a low-lying area, and another work accompanied with erosion is this deposition, and because of deposition process, the lowlands may be filled up. Okay, so in this way, a new landscape is developed, as indicated in figure 6.1. Denotational processes like erosion and transportation are controlled by kinetic energy. Figure 6.1 already discussed earlier, and let me again reproduce it. See here, this is the figure 6.1, and see, when we see this diagram, we have learned that this process of erosion and transportation, okay, is dependent on the kinetic energy. That means the main driving force of erosion and the transportation is kinetic energy. Okay, as mentioned here, as mentioned in your textbook. Okay, the main driving force or the energy for erosion and the transportation is this kinetic energy. Then what do you mean by this kinetic energy? Actually, kinetic energy is a form of energy that an object or a particle has by reason of its motion. That means that when an object moves, okay, it gains some energy, and that energy is known as kinetic energy. Okay, if a work is done on an object by applying a net force, the object speeds up and thereby gains kinetic energy. And kinetic energy depends not only on the object's motion but also on its mass. Okay, say if an object moves along a path, okay, the kinetic energy of the object is equal to 1/2 of the product of its mass and squares of its velocity. So it is expressed in this way. Actually, in the old edition book, it is mentioned. See here. Okay, kinetic energy is equal to 1/2 of the product. Okay, kinetic energy is equal to 1/2 of the product of its mass m and squares of its velocity. So here m denotes mass and v denotes velocity. Okay, so let me repeat. When an object moves along a path, kinetic energy of the body or the object is equal to 1/2 of the product of its mass m and the squares of its velocity v. So we can say translate this equation in this way. Okay, see, it means that so in case of this erosion and deposition, okay, the erosional and depositional capacity of an agent depends on the velocity and the mass of the agent. Let me repeat. The erosional and the depositional capacity of a geomorphic agent depends on the mass and the velocity of the agent. Say for example, let us take running water. Okay, running water. So here we have got the slope, and if the volume of the water is small, okay, then see here, this is the bed and this is the agent running water, and if the volume of the water, that is mass, okay, is small, then transportation work and this erosion activity will be low. Okay, at the same time, if the speed of the this running water is again low, then again the erosion capacity and this transportation capacity of the river will be low. On the other hand, if the speed of the river is very great, then if the volume of the water is big, then it can erode and transport a lot. Say for example, in this case, a very big boulder also can be transported. In this case, if the volume of the river is very small, then boulders cannot be transported. That is the point mentioned here. Okay, the erosion and the transportation capacity of the agent depends on the mass and the velocity. The higher the velocity, then the higher the erosion capacity, or the higher the volume or the mass of the agent, then the higher the erosional capacity or transportation work. Or it may be combined also. If the volume is big and if the velocity is high, then that again the work will be more. So that is the point mentioned here. Okay, that is about kinetic energy. Any question from your side? Any question from your side? If you don't have, then let me continue. The erosion and the transportation of earth material is brought about by wind, running water, glacier, waves, groundwater that we have learned earlier. And out of these different geometric agents, the first three agents, that is wind, running water, and glaciers are controlled by climatic conditions. Okay, wind, running water, and glaciers are controlled by climatic conditions. These three agents represent three states of matter. That is, wind represent gaseous matter, then running water liquid, and these glaciers solid respectively. And where is the other two agents? That is wave and groundwater. Okay, the other two agents of erosion, waves, and groundwater is not controlled by climate. Sea waves and groundwater are not controlled by climate. In case of waves, it is the location, okay, along the surface of litho and hydrosphere coastal region that will determine the walk of wave. That means the walk of wave is dependent on the location that is coastal region. In other words, we find the walks of sea waves only on the coastal region. Okay, see here we have one photograph here. So as this photograph, this tells us that the walk of the wave is found only on the coastal areas. Okay, because of the waves, sea waves, coastal areas are eroded. Whereas the walk of groundwater is determined more by the lithological character of the region. That means walk of the underground water, that is water which is flowing in the underground, is determined by the lithological character. That means the hardness or the softness of the rock or the nature of the rock. Okay, that is what we call lithological character. That is the nature of the rock. A rock may be soluble in water, may not be soluble. Okay, a rock may be very hard or may not be hard. So depending on that, okay, the walk of groundwater is determined. And if rocks are permeable, that is, if water can pass through the rocks and are soluble, the water is available only, and then karst topography develops. So if rocks are permeable and soluble, for example limestone, are found and water is available, then a unique landscape is developed, what we call karst topography. Okay, karst topography means a landscape developed in the limestone region. Actually, this term karst is derived from a natural region, okay, found in this northeast of Gulf of Triste in Slovenia. Okay, so this is the name karst is derived from a limestone region which is located in the northeast of Gulf of Trieste in Slovenia in Europe. Okay, so let me show you some photographs of karst topography. See here, this is a photograph showing karst topography, a limestone region, and you may be seeing holes. Okay, these holes are caps. These are caps developed by made by underground water. Then see here, so this is a landscape known as limestone pavement, okay, on a limestone region, and these are also found in this karst region. So this is another landscape in the karst region, or we also call it karst topography. This feature is known as limestone pavement. It is formed due to solution process, and inside the caps you will find such features. Okay, so this is a sheen inside a cap, and here the pointed features from the shelling are known as stalactites, and from the ground, okay, another pointed pillars are growing up, and these are known as stalagmite. So this is a scene inside a cap, and all these features are developed by underground water, and this is known as karst topography. Any question from your side? So let me continue. If you don't have questions, then deposition is a consequence of erosion, and as I told you, see, when there is erosion, okay, from the highland, then it will be deposited here. This will be deposited here. Okay, here on the highland there will be erosion, and in the low-lying area there will be deposition. That means erosion, deposition is a consequence of erosion. If there is erosion, then there will be deposition, the settling down of materials. Okay, the settling down of the materials. And the erosional agents actually, when the speed of the running water, the speed of the zoomphic agents are slowing down, okay, then there will be settling of the materials, and at that time that there will be deposition. Or if the slopes become very gentle, okay, so when the slopes become very gentle like this, then there will be deposition here. Okay, so deposition may be due to low this gradient and reduce in the velocity. In other words, deposition is actually the work of, and is not actually the work of any agent. Deposition is not work of any agent. Simply it is the settling down of the materials transported by the agent. And by deposition, depression gets filled up. The low-lying areas are filled up by deposition process. Okay, so in this way, the same erosional agents like running water, glacier, wind, waves, and groundwater act as depositional agents also. Okay, the same erosional agents, running water, glacier, wind, waves, and groundwater, will also act as a depositional agents. And next, let me take up another topic, that is soil formation. I think you are very much familiar with soil. Okay, what do you mean by soil? Can anybody tell you? Tell me. Are you connected? Everybody, everyone is disconnecting one after the other, maybe due to network problem. So what is soil? Actually, soil is the biologically active porous medium that has developed in the uppermost layer of the earth crust. And you know, soil is a mixture of organic matter, minerals, gases, liquids, and organisms that support life. That means soil supports life. Okay, soil is a result of decay, soil is a result of weathering process, and soil is the medium for the growth of plants. That you have learned. Okay, next we have a process of soil formation, how soils are formed. Okay, we have a technical term known as pedogenesis. So pedogenesis means the process of soil formation. Okay, so pedogenesis depends first on weathering. So this is a prerequisite. Okay, for the formation of soils, first there should be weathering, and it is this weathering mantle means the depth of the weathered material, which is the basic input for soil to form. So weathering of the rocks or the weathering mantle is the basic input for the soil to form. That means after breaking down a big rock, soils will be formed. The ultimate result of weathering is formation of soil. Now let us read how these swells are formed. First, the withered material, okay, the withered material or transported deposits are colonized by bacteria and other inferior plant bodies like mosses and lichens. First, the withered material, the rock fragments are colonized by bacteria, and that means attacked by bacteria and the other inferior plant bodies like mosses and lichens. I think you are familiar with the mosses and the lichens. See here, this is a photograph showing mosses. See here, the small green plants. So these are mosses, and this will occupy the withered material. Another photograph showing these mosses are here. So first, mosses will occupy the withered material, and lichens, lichens, see here, or lichens. So these are the different types of these lichens or lichens, and these different types of lichens will occupy the withered material, and further there will be decomposition process. Okay, and also several minor organisms may take shelter within the mantle and the deposits. That means within the rock fragments, small organisms, maybe say earthworms, insects, and the burrowing animals will also occupy, will take shelter through the holes of the withered material. The dead remains of organisms and the plant help in the humus accumulation. So when the dead bodies are decomposed, then when the plants are decomposed, then it will provide humus. Okay, humus means partially decomposed organic matter. Minor grasses and the ferns may grow. So on that withered material, minor grasses and the ferns may grow. Later, bushes and the trees will start growing through seeds brought in by birds and the wind. So see, in a place, seeds may be brought by the birds. So birds will eat some fruit in the jungle, then say when they are flying in the sky, there may be defecation, and from their excreta, the seeds may be growing up from the ground. So ferns, I think you may be familiar with the ferns also. So we have one photograph of fern here. So ferns will occupy the swell. Then from the fern, then bushes, small trees, and from the small trees to the big trees. And after that, that will become a jungle. Then plant roots. Plant roots penetrate down. Burrowing animals bring up particles. Masses of materials become porous, and sponges with the capacity to retain water and to permit the passage of air, and finally a mature swell and a complex mixture of mineral and organic products form. See, about this action of plant roots, we also have discussed earlier. Plant root will penetrate into the swell, and because of that, the swell will be loosened, the rocks will be loosened. Burrowing animals also will bring up the particles from the underground on the surface. And because of that, burrowing animals, holes will be formed in the rocks or in the swells, and those holes in the swell will retain water. So in this way, ultimately a mature swell will be formed, and this process of swell formation can be described in this way also. So this diagram shows pedogenesis, that is the process of soil formation. See, this is the first stage. Okay, so this is the first stage, and here we find only these bed rocks. Okay, we find only bed rocks, and here, because of the action of the weather, that is rainfall and this wind, then this temperature, sunshine, there will be weathering process, that is disintegration of the bedrock is occurred. Okay, then this is what I call withering process. Then in the second stage, what happened, then those mosses, okay, see here, mosses and lichens will occupy the rocks, and there will be further chemical decomposition of the rocks, and afterwards see the surface, the rock will be further breaking down into smaller pieces, and here bacteria and these mosses and lichens will occupy the surface rock materials, and there will be further decomposition, and again this topmost layer will be occupied by these fern, bushes. Okay, and when these plants are dead, then it will provide humus, organic matter, to the soil. When insects are dead, animals are dead, it will provide this organic matter. Okay, as I mentioned here. So in this way, the first layer known as Erosion is formed, but it will be followed by this parent material, the bedrock. And as the process continue, okay, ultimately you will find a fully developed soil in the last stage, and here this process will continue for a long time. So plants will be growing, and again will be providing humus, and the roots of the plant will again intrude into the soil and the rocks, and there will be further breaking down. Burrowing animals will make holes here, okay, in the rocks and in the soil, and thus this hole will provide a space to retain water. Okay, so in this way a complete mature soil is developed. And you must know that here we have two important terms. The first one is pedology. Pedology is a subject, okay, so it studies about soils, about the origin, nature, and these characteristics of soil. That means pedology is soil science, and the person who studies soil is known as a pedologist. Okay, a pedologist is a soil scientist. So this is about soil formation. Any question from your side? Are you connected?
Yes, sir. Connected. Yes.
Okay. If you don't have any questions, or let us stop here. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So thank you for joining my class.